When we're using the term high value man and high value woman and stuff like that, do you think that there are any misguided contributors to those things? So for example, like when you imagine like a quote unquote high value man, high value woman, is there something that they're kind of getting wrong? Like do people, when they imagine all of the contributing factors to a high value man, high value woman, are any of those factors, the generally understood factors, incorrect?
I think particularly the relationship with women, either the idea that to have multiple women or to have women that are, you know, half their age and are hyper attractive, it's the women part that I find really, really like contradictory. I think truly high value is the ability to ward off alternatives, to focus on your marriage and create a home for your children. That is high value because there's a legacy that you're hoping to create with children. Where they get it wrong is that you can have multiple girls on a yacht, you can sleep around and this, that and the other. And I always say to men, if you're sleeping around, then you're potentially planting your seeds in low value women. So imagine being a man where this random girl in this city, that girl city, they're all carrying your babies and they're allowing other men into their world, or they're raising the child in a way that you don't agree with. Essentially your legacy is being depleted. So I think that the real misconception when it comes to high value men is the idea of endless women sleeping around loads and loads, being frivolous with who you're sleeping with, enjoying every pleasure the life has to offer, and that makes you a high value man. But I think it's actually foregoing pleasure for your long-term goals that is actually more likely to make you a high value man, particularly with the women's selection, because unlike women we get to choose who we have children with. In this day and age, with pregnancies and abortions and contraceptives, we get to choose. As a man, my body, my choice means you have no say. So if you're a truly high value man and you've got millions to lose and you get the wrong woman pregnant, for the rest of your life you are serving jail time emotionally and financially with that woman. You have far more to lose. You have to be so strict with who you're touching. When you have self-control, you will start to respect yourself so much more. And how you build self-control is every time you go to make a decision, you ask yourself, is there any chance that I'm going to feel any shame, any guilt, or any regret? If there's any shame, guilt, or regret made from this particular decision, don't do it. If there's even an inch of it, you're going to regret it. But if the decision involves no shame, no guilt, no regret, then do that. Always do the thing that has no regrets. The more you live a life that has no shame, no guilt, no regret, the more you'll start to respect yourself and the more you'll like yourself. And therefore your self-esteem will naturally improve. So whereas when you look at people who have low self-esteem, just look at all their decisions. They're chaotic. They are poor decisions. They're short-term goal orientated. So they're doing things that they hate. They'll overdrink and then the next day have a hangover. They'll overspend and the next month they're living paycheck to paycheck. They'll go sleep around and then the next day they feel a bit like, oh God, I'm stuck with this woman. So they live a life filled with regret, and then they start to dislike themselves and then their self-esteem drops. So you want to start practicing more self-control if you want to improve your self-esteem. The third step towards building your self-esteem is fulfilling your potential. Now, how you fulfill your potential is you have a look at the person that you are today. Think about your weight, think about your finances, think about your job, think about your connections, and that is your current self-concept. Compare that to your ideal self. What would an ideal life look like for you? What would be the body you would have? What would be the money you would have? What would be the relationships you have? Now, if there's a huge gap between that, where you are now and where you want to be, chances are you're not fulfilling your potential. But as the gap closes, the closer you are to your full potential. Now, as that gap is, if it's very wide, you're going to have low self-esteem. If your body's nowhere near where you want it to be, if your money's nowhere you want it to be, if your relationships are nowhere near where you want it to be, you're going to have low self-esteem. So what you want to do is make sure that you are fulfilling your potential in every way, shape, or form. And how you can fulfill your potential is have a look at all the problems that you're going through in your life. You know, all the different problems. It might be problems with your friends, it might be problems with your family, it might be problems with your weight, it might be problems with your money, and get into problem solving mode. How do I fix these problems?
what do you think is one thing that men don't really understand about what women want and need?
I think one thing they don't realize is sometimes what they say, they don't necessarily want as much freedom and acceptance as you give them. And what I mean by this is we will say, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. And we'll say, you should love me regardless. You should love me unconditionally. What they truly want is somebody who is able to respect themselves and know when a behavior is unacceptable. What they don't want is a doormat. They really don't want it. And I work with men all the time. And all the men that I've worked with that have been cheated on or been left have never been the bad guy. It's always been the guy that just tried to happy wife, happy life. The guy that was just like, she would have a lot of tantrums, but, I just used to let her off and I just used to let her calm down. And she scratched my face a couple of times, but it's okay. It was an accident. It was funny. They'll say stuff like that. Or they'll say, I caught her text. I don't ever put any boundaries. I don't do anything. I just want her to be happy. I don't think they realize that for women, actually, your boundaries and your self-esteem is a parameter of how much we love you. If you have no boundaries and no self-esteem, we don't know the map of how to love you. But if you know this is your willingness to walk away, these are your deal breakers, this is your boundaries, I can somewhat navigate how to love you correctly, and then I can navigate my own behavior. Nobody wants to be the worst version of themselves. Nobody wants to be with a partner that they can swear at, kick, do all of it. We don't want to be around that person that enables that. We want the person that we know if we even cross that line, he'd be gone. So I think one thing they don't understand is submission to women is not truly what we're looking for. We're trying to understand your level of self-esteem and self-respect. We love your self-esteem. We love your self-respect. Doesn't mean you become hostile and aggressive and be like, I don't tolerate this. It's just a case of, I love you so much, but this behavior I don't tolerate, and this behavior I can't accept. So when you work on this and fix it, perfect. But until that, I can't keep nursing your tantrums, or I can't keep accepting your unacceptable behavior. That kind of way of relaying your boundaries without being without punishing the woman is very attractive.
Yeah, in a way, that's a sign of a man not respecting himself, which is unattractive. If they're going to allow certain behavior that women often sometimes do test the boundaries of. We
all do, and look, initially it feels like love when we are so rude and so disrespectful and so bad, and you forgive us. It feels like, oh, he must really love you.
Yeah, very accepting.
But later it feels like he doesn't love himself. Yeah. So it quickly turns to, oh, he must really love me, to, oh, he must not really love himself. And if he doesn't love himself, how can I love him?
So one of the biggest issues that I've noticed amongst me and my friends is the fear of rejection. When you're like out at a bar and you see an attractive girl and you want to go and approach her, you are just absolutely deathly scared of them just saying no, and you fall flat on your face and everyone sees it and your friends see it and this and that. And then also just like to wrestle with that egoically speaking, like it's pretty challenging. What would you say is the best way if you find someone, you deem them as attractive, you want to talk to them, how do you do that?
So the fear of rejection is something that is very deep and ingrained in men, and I really think your fear of rejection really holds you back when it comes to a man, because if you like, and I see it in different cultures, particularly since I've been in LA and stuff, and you'll see a big cultural difference in how men respond to rejection. You'll see Hispanic and Afro-Caribbean men, how they deal with rejection is they don't place their self-esteem on a woman saying yes or no to them. So they might stop you while they're in their car like, baby girl, you look great, and I'm like, okay, and they'll be like, okay, have a great day. They don't need anything from me, and therefore they don't place my reaction, doesn't affect their level of rejection. It's just simply having a conversation. So they go into dating, or they go into approaching women as if I'm here to give you a good conversation. If you want more of me, you're most welcome. If you not, have a great day. They have that kind of mindset with women. They have that mindset with women, and I know that sounds a bit controversial, but they have a mindset with women that I really want to talk to you, but you're not the only woman in the world, and if you don't want to talk to me, I completely respect your opinion, have a great day. Where men get it wrong, and they get a bit nervous, is her not talking to him or her not responding to him affects his self-esteem. To them it feels like I'm obviously not good enough. It affects their level of how they view themselves. It's about removing that your self-esteem or your self-reflection doesn't depend on her, because how she responds to you depends on her mood that day. She might be in a relationship, so many other factors that are not based on you. So you remove your self-evaluation from her reaction and just replace it with, I'm just giving you an opportunity to get to know me. If you don't want to get to know me, no worries, have a great day. If you do, you're in for a treat. I'm a great guy. It's that unconscious confidence that comes through. So you handle it by saying her rejection doesn't mean I'm not good enough. It just means we're not meant to be. And it's that simple.
What do you think pornography is doing to the male brain chemically?
It's making them incapable of connection both physically and emotionally. Physically, they have erectile dysfunction, and I'm talking to 28-year-old boys that will have erectile dysfunction and they can't perform. And emotionally, porn doesn't model intimacy. It actually models how to make hate with a woman, not how to make love. So they learn how to spit on women, they learn how to degrade women, they know how to make fun of minorities, they learn all of these things, and they think they're learning all these skills. But when you speak to women, they'll say the least satisfying sexual encounters with a man that's addicted to porn, because he's reenacting and not reading her body. He's not learning.
He's not intuitive.
He's
not connected.
Not at all.
He's not there in the moment.
So not only is he doing all these moves that she's not connecting with, but he then can't even lift his cup because there's an erectile dysfunction. So imagine the experience from a woman's end. She's just like, this is the worst experience I've ever had. He is also realizing, okay, she's not enjoying this. Let me just stick to porn because I'm terrible at sex. So that rejection, that encounter is so negative that they go deeper into the rabbit hole, unfortunately. And can I just say, pornography is not good for women either. I think the rise in bisexuality in women is predominantly from exposure to porn. Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's...
How many women are watching porn from people you talk to or coaching or just...
Not as much, but what I find really difficult about pornography and really disempowering is the majority of the time that women are watching it, they're doing it for their partner's pleasure, very limited for their own. So they're watching girl on girl and they're watching things on that, and they're engaging on that behavior primarily for a male gaze, for male attention, for men to find them satisfying rather than their own thing, because women tend to be more emotionally connected to sex. So if they're engaging in a lot of pornography, it's for male desires. So they're almost catering to the male gaze in a way that's helping them lose their own identity. They're signing up for degradation. They're signing up for confused sexual identity. They're signing up for a society that only caters to male sexual gratification. So I find it more bizarre that women watch porn.
Do you think, why do men watch more porn than women?
Because I think for men, it's the ability to access any type of woman without the fear of rejection. And men are more likely to be rejected when they go and seek sex in the real world. Yeah, and so I think it's just the bypassing rejection is what they're doing far more than women.
Why are women not into porn as much, though? Why do they want to watch it?
Because without an intimate connection, porn of sex is limited in how gratifying it can be. Yeah, it's almost like having a cake without sugar. Like without the ingredient of intimacy, it's just a bunch of empty calories and it's not worth the taste. So that's what porn is like for women, without actually caring about somebody. And sometimes they'll watch it, but they're still trying to learn how to please their partner through it. So there's an element of my partner. Whereas for men, it's just to bypass the rejection that they don't want to face.
Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately. And it is a coping mechanism for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like drugs, alcohol, food, pornography.
But the thing is, it's so easy for me to be judgmental, but I didn't grow up where the smartphone had access to pornography. I don't know what kind of person I would have been. And I also have a religious kind of reason to avoid porn. So I'm not saying this to be holier than thou. I'm very aware that if I was in a different circumstance, I'd be just as addicted. But it's so bad for us. It's so bad for couples and intimacy and everything. It's so terrible. And it's something that's almost just accepted. What I find so shocking is if I was to watch a child be abused and get joy out of that, I would be arrested, rightly so. But cut to 20 years when that child is now engaging in voluntary sex work, which is usually most sex offended children go on to do sex work, it's accepted. Voluntary, because what happens when a child's been abused, they often try and regain control by engaging in sex work.
Wow.
It's their way of reestablishing control and boundaries that were ripped off them. So they're thinking, now I'll monetize it and take some control. So usually most people who work in the sex industry have a history of child abuse, sexual abuse. So I just think watching vulnerable people kind of re-traumatize themselves
and getting joy out of that should be somewhat more spoken about, rather than just seeing
Absolutely.
it as an industry. It's not
Absolutely.
an industry that is created on, like, you know, movies where it's people who went through school and tried. It's usually people who went through trauma have now found themselves in working in porn, and we're okay to just watch it all day, every day. It's scary, right?
Why are hot women psychos or crazy?
Yeah, why are hot girls crazy? I love that video.
Yeah, right.
Well, I always say this. It's like two women have completely different experiences of the same man. We could meet the same man and you have a completely different experience to what I would have of him, and I might have a completely different experience of how you have it. And with hot girls, they get the worst version of men. They really get the worst version of men. Again, the men in the comments, oh, you're blaming us. But here's what it is. Men like sex. They like pretty women. So when they see a pretty girl and a hot girl, they can't help but become a guy that's trying to conquer her, or they're trying to get her. And he'll risk it all. If he's married, he doesn't care. If it's at the gym, he doesn't care. If it's at work, he'll cross the work boundaries. They lose their sense of professionalism or their sense of like loyalty just to kind of get an access to her. So she starts to go through life thinking, men are trash. This guy had a girlfriend. This guy was married. That guy's my boss. And he still moved to me. Still tried to be, my London comes out. He still tried to get to me. So she starts to see men as creatures who can't control their sexual urges. Whereas you take a basic or plain Jane, she can be in a bikini next to a guy and he doesn't even notice her. And so she thinks men are, they're fine, they're sufferable, they don't do anything. So she's far more like, oh yeah, go on a lad's holiday, oh you can go Ibiza, oh you can do this, no worries, blah, blah. Whereas a girl that's on the receiving end of going to Ibiza and the guy saying, you're on my table today, or you're not leaving, or taking you to the top tables and stuff, she's watching you every time you go out on a night out.
Do you think like a lot of the hot girls, you know, that are available in this market now, most of them have become like sugar babies?
I think so. I think if you come from a broken home, especially if you don't have a family background, and I do understand that this is no judgment, but when you don't have a home with one parent missing, what happens then, you don't have accountability to two people. And you just do what you've got to do to make ends meet. Sometimes you don't even need to make ends meet, but it becomes addictive. When you
It's so easy, right?
when you divorce sex from any emotion and you see it as an activity, why not get paid for that activity? And so this is what culture has done. It's slowly and steadily taken women to this point. First thing was to create the idea of sex before marriage. Then it was the idea of a spontaneous sex. Then it was the idea of one night stands. Then it's now the idea of why are you doing one night stands to get paid for it? If you don't care about the guy, you're never going to see him again. Why would you waste your body? Might as well make money. So society has conditioned us to get more and more provocative.
But isn't prostitution the oldest business in the world?
It was for people who were desperate. Now it's for people who just want to get their nails done.
Wow. I mean, you know, one thing I've seen since I've come to Dubai is the sugar baby lifestyle
Yeah,
here.
it's so real.
It's so, like, I'd always see like YouTube videos
No,
about
you'll
it.
see it now. Like when you go to Starbucks, you'll see
Yeah,
the sugar baby.
But I'd always watch like a YouTube video. I'm a sugar baby, and this is what I got.
And I thought it was some hidden thing, and I was like, oh, I wonder what it's like now.
I
It's
wonder
just
what
like,
it's
oh, she's right there. Yeah, just ask her.
yeah, and it's so glorified here,
Well, it's
or here, or around the world. Forget here.
Yeah,
I don't
think it's in every
here.
big city, even Miami. But this is in cultures where you minimize the emotional attachment to sex, and men. This is another thing men are delusional about. They think women can't have sex without emotion. Yes, they can. How do you think prostitutes have done it their whole lives? They can when they decide to monetize it.
But I feel like it affects women because I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson. Shout out to JP. Absolutely love
Man
you.
like JP. Man like. Yeah.
And he spoke a lot about women and you know, sexual attachment and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like women that are in that industry or they're in that space, they have more higher chance of like suicide or depression.
Well, and men and women. Here's the thing, we've gotten so used to the idea that men and women are different when it comes to sex, and men can have sex with everybody and anyone, and women can have sex with just one man, but here's the thing, it's psychological for both people. Ask men who cheat, they're usually going through an ego boost. They need an ego boost, or they feel unappreciated by their wife, or they've just lost their job and they need an escapism. It's psychological. If it was biological, they'd have sex with their wife all day, every day, but they don't. So it's a case of, there's an escapism. There's some psychological escapism. Now, for women who do it, It's definitely a sense of she's met people who have used her body so many times against her will that now she's trying to take back control. There's a reason why sex abuse leads to prostitution at a really high rate. They find that sex workers, I'm sure it's different now, but the last time they looked at the data before it became glorified, sex workers have a real history of childhood abuse. And what happens is when you've been abused or molested as a child, the control has been taken out of your hands. Somebody's accessed your body and violated it without your permission. So to re-establish control, the person who's been a victim starts to then sell their body and say, you can only access me on my terms now. And it's a form of regaining control. But until you undo the trauma,